Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for a webinar talk called Modernizing SCADA for Compliance, Control, and Clarity, a Real-World Case Study. My name is David Blanco. I am the Vice President of Sales for AUTOSOL. And before we get too far into it, we are here to talk about modernizing SCADA systems. And I wanted to add some broader context to what we're going to consider modern for the duration of the hour, as a way just to kind of help set a baseline for the rest of the discussion. So what makes a SCADA system modern, right? I'm going to start off by saying what it's not before I say what it is. And a modern SCADA system is not a full rip and replace just to get something new. It is not a new front on the AI arms race just to have AI. And it's not a way to solve for just one special use case to try something. I think the answer is very simple. What makes a SCADA system modern? A SCADA system is modern if it solves for your current problems, has a low total cost of ownership, and last but not least, becomes a vector for growth for your company. If all three of those things are present, then I would assert here that that makes a modern SCADA system. And I want to focus a little bit on that last one, the vector for growth. I think there's two types of growth that are at play in this case study that we're about to start. And the first is physical growth, and the second is business growth. If your SCADA system is primed to help assimilate physical growth, right? Either you're going to add new meters, you're going to lay new pipe, you're going to drill new wells, you're going to acquire somebody. Then in all those types of situations, if your SCADA system can handle that physical growth, I would say it's a modern SCADA system because you've kind of designed it for the future of your business. And there's also business growth. Let's say you have your existing infrastructure and someone says, hey, we're going to shift this data from the OT network to the cloud to do some enhanced analytics on it, or to attach a MCP program to it, something like that. If your SCADA system can do that, then it's also a modern SCADA system because it's enabling that type of physical and sophistication growth of your business. And so with that kind of context, I would like to go ahead and have our guests introduce themselves. Please, Alex.
Yeah, morning, everybody. Alex Grewatch. I am the Director of Gas Control for Spire Energy, based out of St. Louis. Been with Spire since 2012. And somewhat recently, the last 4 years or so, had the pleasure of having the SCADA support team roll up through me under the leadership of Kimball Grafton.
And with that, I'm Kimball Grafton. I'm the SCADA manager and provide a support team for Alex in the control room and the multiple SCADA systems we have. Or actually only two now, but previously it was many SCADA systems. So.
And my name is Aaron Osborne. I'm a lead of SCADA engineering here at AUTOSOL. I've been with AUTOSOL since about 2009. And I was in this kind of circumstance. I was the lead of the AUTOSOL team that was helping assist Spire with the kind of consolidation of 5 different SCADA systems into ultimately one main system with 2 different pieces to it. So we were, it was a big project. It was very interesting to explore all that, but we were able to consolidate everything down. So, David, pass back to you.
All right. Thank you all. And thank you, everyone joining us live and everyone who may see the recording after. We appreciate your time today. Alex, Kimball, appreciate your time as well. And with that, I will go ahead and go into the first question that I prepared for this. And that is, this is for everyone who's on the call. What were some of the key drivers that made SCADA modernization a priority at Spire?
Yeah, I'll start off with this one. To give a little bit of background, Spire, we're primarily a utility company. We operate in Missouri, Alabama, Mississippi, and then we have 4 interstate pipeline companies that we operate, primarily going through Illinois and Missouri. So one of the drivers for us, as Kimball had alluded to, we had 5 SCADA systems through acquisition, through growth, through consolidation. We had gotten down to 1 control room, but still had 5 SCADA systems. And that created a bunch of problems, inefficiencies. We had kind of siloed subject matter experts. It created issues around training in the control room, training SCADA staff. Just how we managed our business became complicated. In addition to some extra financial elements of that, paying multiple vendors, paying multiple license structures, just how we manage that kind of key business aspect in our world. We just really, that was the key driver for getting down to a single, more modern, updated SCADA system.
All right. Kimball?
And I'll piggyback on what Alex said. You know, it was quite a challenging, is probably the best word I can describe, trying to support multiple platforms, multiple vendors, some of which we had to rely primarily on outside support from the vendor. We did have some expertise in-house on a few of the platforms, but it was definitely challenging. Along with that, it was multiple domains. Different platforms were on different domains. We did have a couple of platforms that were on the corporate domain at one time, and it was just there was just a lot of challenges with keeping all of the systems, along with patching and updates goes along with that. So it was definitely challenging. So
yeah. So it sounds like from y'all's comments there, you had a very high cost of ownership with all the different vendor relationships, all the different siloed IT departments. And also it felt like, Alex, I feel like you alluded there with, sorry, Kimball, all the reliance on vendors, kind of a lack of a feeling of ownership as well. And with that, I would like to ask each one of you, with that as your previous experience, what was it about where you were that made you pick AUTOSOL?
Kimball, I'll let you start off with this one.
Well, I've been utilizing AUTOSOL's communication management application probably 15 years. I've had my hands within, AUTOSOL and their support team for a long time. And when we had we had a small project came up several years ago, and we decided to utilize AUTOSOL for that implementation. It was a new implementation, and it went very well, and we just had the best experience with them through that. But it didn't prevent us from preparing RFP and going out for bids and all. But that was very good for us to experience that. Not necessarily me, but other personnel within Spire, just to give them some experience with the company. And also, we looked hard at the roadmaps of the vendors long term and their long term support and enhancements. We like what we saw regarding Schneider's product roadmap and how AUTOSOL was heavily involved with the application development. That really inspired us too.
Yeah, I'm confident I drove Kimball crazy. I think we must have discussed roadmap items and kind of how when we thought about AUTOSOL and we were looking to make that decision, kind of what that roadmap looked like was something that I must have had a weekly call with Kimball, just driving him nuts for probably 3 months on that. It was a big focus of ours. But also to piggyback off what Kimball said, we had a very interesting opportunity with AUTOSOL with this asset that was being commissioned. With a lot of assets that you commission, you don't truthfully know all the ins and outs of the operation. So getting to work with AUTOSOL staff on that and just hearing seeing their expertise on display firsthand was well beyond just picking up a SCADA system and moving it into, Clear SCADA at the time, now Geo SCADA. Their staff that we were fortunate enough to work with clearly understands pipeline operations and was able to really help us kind of in a more collaborative way choose the kind of finishing touches, the functionality that maybe we didn't even know that we needed at the time, that have been rolled into what is now kind of our daily standard.
Right. If I could ask you 2 quick follow-ups on that, one short, one long, is on the roadmap items. When you were having your daily whipping of Kimball about roadmaps, what about the Schneider AUTOSOL roadmap stood out to you beyond like specific features or just the engagement? What what was the deciding factor on the roadmap?
For me, it was customer engagement. We got a very direct sense from multiple people kind of involved with that world at the Schneider level that they are customer focused, that they want to hear what the customers need from the product. They want to hear that direct feedback from things that, not just the good things, not just the stuff people want, but they also wanted to hear about what's not working, kind of in quasi real time, to try to look at those things, to find course corrections, to make enhancements on the product, to make sure not just long-term, but even current state, they're building upon what the future should look like for the product development.
All right, thank you. That actually answered both my questions. So you also mentioned AUTOSOL expertise. So I will pivot now to Aaron, since he was the project manager on the AUTOSOL side for this effort. Aaron, from the integrator project manager's perspective, can you talk a little bit about what you think made GeoSCADA a good fit for Spire's needs? And also kind of add, how did AUTOSOL approach consolidating these 5 different SCADA systems into one platform?
Yeah, sure. I think from the GeoSCADA aspect, one of the key focuses that we emphasize with the GeoSCADA platform is its extreme kind of flexibility and scalability. There's a lot of services out there. There's a lot of applications out there, but for the same type of application, for the same type of system, the reason we use GeoSCADA is that it can be used for both small and extremely large systems. It has some really solid built-in quality of life features that help make it a stable product, and it has we have a really good relationship with that, with that customer focused side of things. So whenever we mention something, we hear, hey, customer is experiencing this, or the customer is experiencing these types of updates or requests from either regulatory or industry perspectives, then they're always here to listen, and they give us good feedback on that. So GeoSCADA worked really well for that kind of application. It has a lot of the tools kind of built into it to facilitate these kind of mass developments and be able to consolidate multiple things into one kind of coherent system, rather than having a very piecemeal approach of, well, I have one system for this area and one system for this area. And then when it came to the consolidation of the 5 systems into one, there are other types of systems that will kind of encourage, well, you'll just keep those 5 different ones separate, that you can keep them all like kind of independent. And what we were able to do is not have to do that. We were able to use the same kind of database structure across a larger type of system, and then bring all of those into the fold. So that's easier said than done. Obviously, you have 5 different unique systems that were built over years and years and have their own flair and special features and functionality built into them. But that flexibility of GeoSCADA, the templatization mechanism, really helped be able to universally unite those systems where needed and still allow the uniqueness where it was required.
Yeah, I think that that's that kind of flexibility. There's no such thing as one size fits all. I think the regulations aren't even truly one size fits all. So I think that flexibility is kind of what makes, in some regards, GeoSCADA a little special, because it's flexible and scalable. It's a whale doing a somersault, which is entertaining and cool to see. My next question here is for you two, Kimball and Alex. And when you look back at the migration process from your old system to your new system, what do you feel were the most critical success factors that ensured a smooth transition?
The most critical success factor to me was around collaboration and communication planning, really between AUTOSOL and Spire. We had a SCADA support team, our gas controllers, their supervisors. We even had IT involved from the start. But really from the first kickoff meeting through our SAT testing, the team's effort allowed us to migrate to a successful platform, a successful system. And it was just all about the collaboration and talking through issues and really diving into what is best for the company, what's best for the controller, the ease of the controller, as well as what's best to support the system. For my team to support it, we didn't need too much of this or not enough of that. We needed, to have the right tools and to really, help support the system. And it just kind of came together, through our collaboration and our weekly meetings. It almost seems like daily meetings at sometimes, but it was just very good all around, just the collaboration and communication between the two.
Yeah, I'll add to that. In those initial kickoff meetings that we had, and we call them meetings, they were more like, I think they were each about a week long for the 2 phases of the effort. But in those, we set really, really strict kind of responsibility matrices. And I think that helped out a lot too, to put the right tasks in everybody's bucket and make sure that everybody kind of understood how they're going to contribute to that. Not that those were firm and didn't get adjusted along the way, but they gave us kind of good operating ground rules for each side of the equation there. And the accountability throughout the process has been great, I think. We found instances where, the ball gets dropped by one person or another. And there was never any finger pointing. There was never any, we'd raise our hand and say, oops, we missed that on the Spire side. And let's talk and let's figure out how to rectify it and get it back in the right direction. And it was always a very, very good process to kind of to work through these oddball things that came up outside of, a 2.5-year project.
Yeah. Kimball, I kind of want to follow up a little bit about something that you said there, talking about collaboration. So if we can drill down a little bit into what that meant for you, how did, kind of in more detail, how did you approach collaborating with AUTOSOL during the design and integration phases? And what about how we worked together made the partnership effective?
Well, like most projects, we set up a shared site for our data files so that we can easily share back and forth. And in this case, AUTOSOL was working remote. My team, a lot of the team members were remote from St. Louis or from the data center. So it was a collaborative effort there, just to be able to share information and exchange, files, data, information, and just ideas. But that was something we did, at the beginning. We set up meetings, probably 2 or 3 a week, reoccurring meetings between AUTOSOL and Spire. There's usually a day or two during the week that we would have internal Spire meetings to basically absorb and really understand some of the proposal and changes and decisions, on the project. So, and then we'd bring that back to the table with the meeting with AUTOSOL. But it was great to just provide our, experience, the examples and options that AUTOSOL provided. We would come up on different subjects, and Aaron and the team would say, well, what about this? What about this? And they were great, just, on the spot, bringing up, options and ideas that for us to mull over and make decisions on. It seems like it was just a whirlwind of decisions and ideas floating around. It was kind of hard to keep up with, but we set some good standards in place of tracking ideas and topics and decisions that were made on those. So all in all, it was just a good process.
Yeah, I like to hear that. When we talk internally at AUTOSOL about how a project went or how we want to approach it, we tell ourselves that we don't want to sell you something. We want to work with you on a solution. And it sounds like, internally, how we rate ourselves, we accomplish that mission with that, or with this project. And I think that that collaboration is important for everybody, because I think it does 2 things, right? We come with the experiences of all the projects we've ever done. You come with the experiences of all the projects you've ever done, and more knowledge about how your business runs than anyone else in the room. And when we come together like this, that's how we end up happy with each other when the project's over. and happy with what we built together. And I think that that is a unique thing in the business nowadays. And with that, I kind of want to ask Aaron something, because he was the face of AUTOSOL for this. Can you go into a little more detail for me and the audience here on the role that AUTOSOL played in some of those initial decisions that Kimball was just talking about, right? Like on the architecture, right? Consolidating 5 different types of SCADA technologies into one unified architecture that their control room could get on board with. Can you just go into more detail about that process?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that we did was just kind of offer insight into how the application worked and how it could be utilized. I mean, there's, in addition to, as was mentioned, what we've seen at other projects, what we've seen at other customers before. We have a lot of industry experience with a lot of these pipeline operations, so we kind of see how a lot of different systems are built up. Some are more complicated than others, but there's advantages to some and disadvantages to other directions to go with things. But we've seen a lot of different options. So I think the biggest thing that we did initially was just present, hey, this is likely, given your distribution diversification, like geographically of where your locations are at, this might be the best direction with how the servers are laid out. We wound up going with a triple standby setup with a couple of DMZ permanent standby servers, which allow for read-only secure access to that to the SCADA system without needing to go directly to the SCADA infrastructure. And it's a pretty common setup on newer systems, and it served a really good role in this case. Kind of after that main idea was kind of decided, in the next breakdown was, okay, well, how are we going to break out these systems? So there's 5 different pipelines, each with a different set of tags and different set of infrastructure and RTUs associated with them. How are they going to get arranged? So we kind of played little musical chairs a little bit to try to figure out how we're going to organize what made sense from a business perspective, what made sense logically, security-wise, and so on. So we kind of did some back and forth with that. And I think the way it wound up settling down between basically there's a system 1 and a system 2 wound up being a really good way of doing it, because of course you can put everything into one machine, but now you have a lot of eggs in one basket. So there's a give or take balance with that when it comes to just diversification versus consolidation of systems, and I think we hit a really good balance with that.
All right. To go back to you, Alex, real quick, and thinking about how the system has been since it's gone live, and how your experience was with your old system, can you kind of review with us some of the bigger operational challenges that your gas control team faced with your old system, and give us some examples of how things have improved with your new ACM Geo SCADA system?
Absolutely. So we had the typical issues and operational challenges that you would all expect with a kind of legacy outdated system. One of the biggest ones was access to data and the consistency of which we were accessing that data. So across the various systems and areas of responsibility, you had unique ways or back-end systems that our IT group had to manage to allow us to manage that data, to get key performance indicators out of the system. And it also included a lot of manual labor on the regulatory side and on the control room supervision side. Investigating issues, investigating incidents, tracking controller activity, just your standard control room management type of tasks, or even just operational troubleshooting and support were much more difficult in these different various outdated systems. But the one I'd probably highlight is our subject matter experts. We had them, but we had to have them based on the fact that we were on 5 different systems. So essentially the way that we were positioned to support these systems is we had a member of Kimball's team essentially dedicated to each of these legacy systems. So when we had folks out on PTO, we had problems that required more than one person. We struggled to have any type of synergy across the workforce. So we would experience delays on issue resolution just due to that subject matter expert kind of silo. In addition, if you had, our peak demand season, folks get a little bit more tax than others. So how we were able to kind of share resources and just the lack of efficiency, I think would be the thing I'd highlight. We were not efficient in supporting these systems just due to the various nature and expertise required on them. And that's something we've seen a dramatic uptick on. We are probably months away, if not maybe a month away from putting in a standard ticketing system for anything related to SCADA, where any control room operator sitting on any desk can just submit a SCADA ticket that would get picked up by the next person up in Kimball's team. Because through this process, in addition to having them involved with the consolidation, we also took this opportunity to ensure that they are operationally trained on the kind of key details that each of these systems have. And that training was of large support to Aaron and his group as well. So we tried to take advantage of these things, not just to consolidate things, but to better position our workforce as well, to respond to and manage internally this single consolidated system.
Yeah. And on that topic, I think that there is a certain quality all its own to quantity, right? And that goes both ways. A lot of problems, bad quality. Fewer problems, better quality, right? And I think that that's one of the points I made earlier about what makes a SCADA system modern. And by that comment alone, I would judge the SCADA system modern because it lowered your total cost of ownership, right? You have a lighter team, you have a more dynamic team. They can all pull in together and help each other. Hopefully no one burns out during the high season. And you have ownership of your system. Just so the audience knows, when they say a ticket comes in and someone answers the phone, it's a Spire employee. Spire is independently operating this new system that they built. And I think that's one of the biggest factors in, I think, whether or not a system has a low total cost of ownership. One, do you get the opportunity to own it? Yes, in this case. And also, how efficiently do you get to own it? And it sounds like you checked both those boxes on this project. So
yeah, I'll add real quick, David. One of the things we were looking at that kind of helped, going back to one of the earlier questions, we were looking to get to about an 80-20 split on our side, where Spire is managing and operating, 80% of this and working with AUTOSOL on that remaining 20% or less. And we feel really confident that we've reached that.
Yeah. That's great. It's always, should you say this on the internet, but mission accomplished. So Kimball, if I could focus on you for a bit here, similar vein of questioning, right? Now that the system is live, how has, the system's live, the composition of how the team interacts with each other is different. How has your role shifted? Are you thinking more about the long-term strategy of your business? Are you doing analytics or optimization? How has your role changed with the new system?
That's a good question. And kind of to piggyback on what Alex was just saying about subject matter experts, within different systems, I just kind of wanted to throw in that it has been a good relief for me and the rest of the team, really, to know that they kind of have each other's back. There's more collaboration between them and getting things resolved on the system. And it's just a relief for me to knowing that kind of anybody on the team can jump into the new system and help support it and work out issues, that come to them from the control room or the field ops. And that's been a great relief for me to just optimize the system where you have a good support team in place to do that. But as far as the support team, we're trying to focus a little bit on the support process and the documentation around that. Like Alex said, trying to get the ticketing system in place and even some of the processes, like kind of to see if we can document better some of our patching, updating, just some of the routine things that go along with system supports. We also, with this system, we had it with one of our other SCADA systems, but now throughout of our enterprise system here, we've got a development system that we can can develop new RTUs, new graphics, or whatever we may need to do within that system before interrupting the production system. And we've seen that on one of our most recent, well, not really recent acquisitions, but another business unit where we integrated a compressor station into our system. We pretty much developed it all on the development system, and actually have gone through and trained the controllers, using that system, which has been a great benefit. We're also looking at some additional reporting capabilities to really support our corporate side of our business. Just trying to get data outside of SCADA on different domains, trying to get it to a common place was definitely a challenge. And it really limited the amount of data and what we could present to our corporate side of the business. We're optimizing our field communications with this system. Now that we have a common communication server and application, we're strengthening, our communication networks, integrating, multiple VPNs for multiple carriers on those networks so that we can be flexible throughout our enterprise. And it's really coming together. It's allowing us to do more things and really strengthen the whole system together. So it's been great.
Yep. That's great to hear. Part of a modern SCADA system is also that ability to grow with the business. And if the new system gives you the time of day to actually do some long-term planning on communications, RTU, PLC, testing, and optimization, that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point. Alex, if I can bounce back to you a little bit, since the control room is ultimately the client for a system like this, can you talk a little bit from a compliance and audit standpoint? How has the new system helped support regulatory reporting and confidence in the data you're getting?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I alluded to this a little bit earlier about just how complicated it was with these various systems and one-off procedures we had to have to pull certain data. The CRM regulatory reporting piece was pretty much built from scratch, depending on the area of responsibility. So having this consolidated system with a standard approach through use of the One SCADA CRM reporting tool has shaved off, at a minimum 10 hours per month per AOR. So we have seen that these reports that we would used to have to go in and manually collect data, that each of the supervisors would go in for each AOR every month and pull this data out, they can do in minutes what used to take them hours. And in addition to that, just the cleanliness and the categorization of the data allows us to run reports on the fly as well. And its inclusion in our read-only virtual ViewX instance allows us to have better dialogue with, our downstream business elements as well. So we've started dialogue with our compliance group about them utilizing, virtual ViewX directly to start pulling some of these, regulatory requirements. Obviously transferring some of that responsibility is a longer discussion, as I'm sure all of you are aware of in your different organizations, but it's there. It's an option now. And these are things that, just being able to, through 3 clicks of a button, just export the data out that you need and get it out in your system versus building out queries and reviewing the accuracy of some of that data and scrubbing it. We're confident that the data is accurate. We're confident that the data meets our needs, and have been very, 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 very thankful for what AUTOSOL has been able to do to even customize some of those things that meet our kind of unique operational criteria.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that sounds like it has changed more than just the support team's lives at the end of the day. So I appreciate the detail. And I kind of want to shift to a little, I guess, different topic real quick. And this is for all of you. So please, everybody chime in here. What surprised you the most during this modernization journey, either positively or as a challenge that came up?
I can start. So I'll just, as an opener here, I was shocked about how many odd requests I had about our unique kind of operational stuff that Aaron managed to say yes to. I swear I had one teed up one day about 3 months into the project that he was going to be like, nope, no way. There's not a chance we can do something like that. And after about a week of kind of back and forth, we were able to implement it. So I think that that was probably something that surprised me the most, is that, you know, how we were able to find opportunities to implement unique needs, technically speaking, into a modern kind of system like this. I had a lot of concerns that these things were just legacy built and they wouldn't be able to be replicated in a usable fashion. And that just was not the case. Most specifically, probably on our point-to-point interface. We had some unique things that we like to see around our side that are kind of unique to certain state CRM expectations. And then Aaron and team did a really good job of finding ways to present that in a way that would meet our regulatory needs, as well as kind of meeting some of the feedback we got from the controllers on how just the tool should work and function for them.
Yeah. Good job, Aaron.
I guess from my perspective, I was most impressed with how much knowledge AUTOSOL had on the GeoSCADA product, or ClearSCADA Geo SCADA. I didn't realize how in depth they were in developing applications and really developing an integration with the product before we used them. So that's one thing that kind of surprised me as far as how much experience and the guys y'all have on staff, how much they know about the product and can answer questions and provide information on the product and solutions through the project. You know, like Alex was saying, we had a lot of I guess, how do we do this? How can we do this? How can we solve this problem? And time after time, AUTOSOL came back with solutions and the knowledge around that. And if we saw, you know, any issues with the problems, you know, AUTOSOL was in direct contact with Schneider Electric on the product, you know, to help out with any solutions or any issues that may have come up during the project. So, and helping resolve even the issues or just solution to the implementation. So it was a good surprise for me to see that collaboration, not only between us and AUTOSOL, but between AUTOSOL and Schneider. I think that was one good thing that came out of the project for me.
I would say on the AUTOSOL side of things, one of the and this is one of the things that was most a pleasant surprise was the cooperation with Spire. The team with SCADA and gas control was extremely willing, extremely helpful in talking about what the problems were and explaining them in detail. I've worked with a lot of different projects. I've had a lot of different exposure to different types of systems, and one of the difficulties is I'm never going to be an expert in that type of pipeline or your particular system. And the willingness of exploring these topics during the project was seen as a very surprising, warm, welcome. It was just kind of great. This is awesome. We can talk about what there actually is, so we can help design a solution for that particular thing. A lot of times people don't really want to go into the weeds and the details of those types of topics. They said, no, I just need this, here, build this. And I mean, we can do that, and that definitely works, and there's not really a problem with that necessarily. But that exploring phase that we did, we spent a lot of time trying to understand what was the best direction to take the system, which is probably that big difference between just making a SCADA system versus modernizing the SCADA system.
Yeah, and Alex, on some of those some of those legacy challenges, I think that the inability to integrate the legacy into the new platform is what sometimes traps the new platform as legacy, right? If you can incorporate the legacy structures while still offering the ability to basically upgrade or change later without having to redo everything, which I believe is what we've accomplished here, that's a real modern system. You have the option for growth when the financial opportunity comes to Spire to rip and replace everything that's out there in the field physically. Your software is going to be able to talk to that. And the thing I'll say in response to Kimball here about how you enjoyed, I guess, the dynamic of AUTOSOL to Spire, but also AUTOSOL to Schneider, is that it takes two to tango, right? Schneider has to want to talk to us too. And that's one of the reasons why we like Schneider, we like Geo SCADA, because they are genuinely interested in how you want to use the product and willing to make changes to make sure that they can be that modern SCADA system, that bridge from what was to what you want to be. And I think that's somewhat unique in the SCADA space specifically, either through a hardware or even a software company, is caring about how people want to build solutions with your software instead of just trying to convince people, hey, buy it. And that's one of the reasons why AUTOSOL partners with Schneider, is because they help us do what we want to do: build solutions, build modern SCADA systems, build something that everybody walks away and is proud about. So thank you all for your responses. Those were great. Thank you. So if you can go back in time to the kickoff of the project, what is one thing that you would tell yourself or maybe your team about the project before it started? Like a lessons learned or something. Yeah.
Your hair will be more gray at the end, but you'll be better for it. No, but in seriousness, I would say that it takes time to do it right. And I think that that's something where I'm pleased that, we had a lot of good feedback and guidance from AUTOSOL. And I think internally as a team, it's not something that we sacrificed any quality on. I think we buckled down and we blew well past our target completion date, but it was in an effort to make sure that the product met the exact expectations that we were shooting for from a quality standpoint. And that's just something I think we would have probably discussed in more detail when we got started with the project, that we're willing to kind of go down that road and make sure it takes a little bit more time to get it done correctly. But I'm pleased we did. I think that, we had a lot of opportunities throughout the project where we could have cut corners because we found some hurdles that were tough and they were going to take a lot of time to implement the correct end for them. And we decided we're going to pause. We're going to come up with a plan to do that. And I think I'm really on the lessons learned side. I think those were all the right decisions to spend the extra time, put in the extra effort, and make sure that it's done correctly.
Yeah. Kimball?
I'll follow up. And Alex and I have talked about this, I don't know how many times through the project, but going into a project like this, you've got to expect change. You got to be prepared. And our key word was pivot, right? You got to be prepared to pivot. And you got to be flexible and open-minded and think outside the box of what you need, what you want, what will give you the best product, and provide the controllers what they need to do their job, as well as the support team to not overcomplicate it enough to where the support team can't provide the support they should on that. So there's a balance there, but you've got to be willing to really speak up and speak your mind and put your 2 cents in and get all of the stakeholders together to be on the project from the beginning. We had all of my support team guys, we had controllers, we had supervisors, we had IT people. So we just had the whole team in there to put their 2 cents in to throw in ideas, make decisions. And I think that's where we came out with the best product and best solution for us. And the lesson learned probably was is think about the corporate departments and what data they may need and what they need that's downstream of the SCADA system that's kind of behind the firewall, it's locked in. You got to think about how are you going to get the data to them, what format, and how you really need to present that to them, whether it's in a reporting system or a historical database or whatever the case may be. Just think about that ahead of time as far as the lessons learned. We kind of waited toward the end to talk about kind of historical data reporting, and it came back to bite us a couple of times, but we worked through that and we've got a good solution now. And we feel like our corporate side and our operational departments have the information they need to do their job.
Yeah. I think that the fact that you had kind of, I'll say the collaboration of your corporate office as well was a huge benefit to y'all being able to get the space to, as Alex said, take the time and do it right. And I think sometimes people forget, you know, they look at the project timeline and they think, okay, this is a year and a half, 2 year, 2.5 year project. It's not. Building it out is the first phase of a 20 to 25 year project of maintaining and growing this system. So it's, you know, you take the time, you build a foundation strong enough and deep enough and well enough, and you can keep adding stories to your house instead of trying to pour a new foundation while you're living in it. And I think that kind of, I'll say, political or financial space that your leadership gave the two of you for this is a big key factor in the ability for this project to be as successful as it was. So if they're listening, thank you for giving them the time to do it right. I think that everyone who works on that system will appreciate it. Aaron, would you like to add anything?
One of the things, there's always things that you kind of know that the standardization is always going to be the hardest part of a particular project, getting the names and terminologies right. I think that there is, we still addressed that early, but that was still probably the thing that start even earlier is just, hey, we have 5 different systems, which means there's 5 different sets of terminology and 5 different ways the field refers to each particular piece of equipment and 5 different ways the RTUs, at least 5 different ways the RTUs are configured. And so, getting the definitions and terminologies right early is crucial. I mean, we did do it early, but it's never early enough. So that's probably the biggest thing is I'd say even more time, just get that stuff out of the way. So you know that a valve is a valve, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess let's break the fourth wall here for a second. Kimball, what advice would you give to the audience when designing a modern SCADA system, especially when it comes to consolidating as many platforms as you did?
Well, I guess, again, the key word is pivot, but with multiple systems, and multiple vendors like we had some very hard discussions, like Aaron said, around standardization. I remember on the kickoff meeting, we talked about standardization and tag names, and syntax of tag names and references. They were keywords that certain business units used for their RTUs that nobody else in the company, used. So it was a matter of terminology, like Aaron said. Those things really were key in this, and not only that, but the graphics. How do you lay out the graphics? Just the navigation around the graphics. What level of graphics do you have through the system? You have your overview and maybe an area and a station detail, and what other pop-up windows, and how are you going to display these tabular views, and just navigation through all of those graphics is very daunting, really. But you've got to set that foundation and go through there and really figure out what you need to do, and what you want to make it simple enough to where the controller can get through to whatever they need in a quick manner. But it's just a lot of data that you need to display and let them get to what they need to do in a timely manner. One of the things was the third-party applications. We kind of went through a phase where some of the systems had third-party applications bolted onto them or integrated into them, and we had to make decisions. Do we integrate that into the new system? Do we design it and develop it into the new system? And really, through this whole process, we found that we were able to really develop most of the applications within the system. Like Alex said, with the control room management, between shift change, alarm management, and some of the others, we were able to build that in to where we're able to, I guess, discard, if you will, the third-party applications and not have to worry about that support and somebody being an expert on that application. So it really helped us all together to have a better product there. And I guess the other thing is just, again, stakeholders and, allowing everybody to buy into the project in the beginning and to provide ownership of the product. All of my guys, feel like they're not scared to get into the product and support the product now. And it's just a good feeling all around to know that we've got something that's going to last us 20, 25 years.
Yeah. We're running up on the top of the hour here, so I'm going to ask one quick question and then one closing question for everybody. Aaron, the quick question is going to be for you, and basically it's, when it comes down to organizations starting to evaluate modernization for themselves, what is one technical insight or best practice that you would share for them up front when starting this journey?
Yeah, I'd say kind of similar to what I was just mentioning. Be willing to think a little bit outside the box. Be willing to think about how you're going to kind of create this and adjust it in the future. It's not necessarily rebuilding what you have. It's building where you want to go and building an infrastructure that allows you to point the wheels in the right direction, rather than just continuing to work with what you have. So, obviously the system needs to work with legacy platforms, legacy components and tags and everything else, but that doesn't mean that you can't build the infrastructure with that direction. And that's probably the biggest key component to making the project successful, is that openness to entertain that direction.
Yeah. One of my favorite sports quotes analogies is from, I think, Coach John Wooden. And it's something like, if you don't have the time to do it right, you don't have time to do it again. So I think that applies to almost everything in life. So the last question I'll ask everybody before we wrap up here is kind of, how do you think that this modernization shifted the way you think about long-term SCADA strategy for your organization?
Yeah, I'll just say that standardization is the name of the game for us now. I think we don't make a change anymore in our SCADA system under any circumstance that just has consideration for one area of responsibility or just one asset. Every change that we're making, every upgrade we're making, every improvement or enhancement we're doing, we're thinking about how it could affect or could benefit the rest of our enterprise on the SCADA and gas control side. And I think that is just, our focus has shifted, our mentality has changed, because we've gone through the effort to unwind all these one-off, unstandard practices and processes, and it has just become paramount to our success and our mentality.
Yeah, I think, you've turned your SCADA system into a vector of growth for your company, and I think that is something to be very proud of. Kimball, how has this changed how you think about SCADA long term?
It really changed my mind around customization of the SCADA system. I think that was one big thing that I saw within this system, that how customizable it is, but it's not over daunting to where you can't support it and it's something it's really going to cause havoc later. That's kind of one of the things, futurization, or thinking, or modernization. With this system, it's very flexible. I think AUTOSOL has laid the foundation for the system. They've got a good product without much change at all, but there is a lot of customization that's allowed in the system. So it just depends on what you need and what you want for your system, and it is fully functional. With added applications, or consolidate some of the third-party applications. And the other thing is really just future proofing with this, with expanding the system. Since we went live with the system, we've actually integrated a couple of other SCADA systems into these systems. So and they've gone great, smoothly. And we knew we had all of our standardization and information we needed, and it was a matter of just getting in the right format and get it into the new system. So it just changed my thoughts around the whole SCADA environment and how flexible it can be.
All right. Well, with that, I feel like we are out of time. I would like to thank both of you for your time today, and thank you to Spire for allowing y'all to talk. Aaron, thank you for also joining us. My takeaway from this talk is basically that a modern SCADA system does become a vector for growth for the company. It allows the owners of it to actually own the system. You're not beholden to anybody. And also, the people involved matter. I think that's my biggest takeaway from this too, right? Spire has a very positive business culture internally, allowed them to engage with us. We had a very positive experience building this with you. And AUTOSOL is both a vendor and an integrator. And the vendor that we worked with, Schneider, was also very accommodating. And so we kind of had the dream team assembled here. So once again, thank you all for your time. For those of you who are listening and interested in engaging us further, again, we are AUTOSOL. Our website is autosoln.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're on every other social media that there is. And we would invite any sort of follow-up questions, comments, concerns. And if you would like to see a recording of this, one will be posted, I believe, on both Bright Talk and our YouTube channel. So thank you, everybody, for your time today, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep.